And now I would like to present LaTosha, who is going to present her work, Artist at Work. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is LaTosha Pointer, and so what you are about to see is what I spent half the time I've been here working on. And so I had a lot of options and a lot of pictures to choose from. So this is really hard for me to make, but yeah, I hope you enjoy it. It was a great experience, a very rewarding experience to work with all the artists here, and I'm grateful that I got to do this. Oh yeah. So my goal was to photograph around like the entire ACA campus. I should have said that before. So as you can see, the pictures were like in different places, intentional, because this is a beautiful campus. Yeah. So make sure you give back, okay?
In the words of Dan Rather, I have to apologize. I'm a pro and I get paid to not let it show, so let's move on. Anyways. So back in September, I was sitting in my parents' basement watching an old 60 Minutes clip of Jeff Bezos talking to Bob Simon while seated behind a desk made out of 2x4s and an old door frame. I was actually tearing up. Pretty pathetic, right? But I was in desperate need of a pep talk. I had just dropped out of Carnegie Mellon to work full-time on a startup designed to link artists with dealers and collectors using machine learning. But my partner backed out at the last minute to take care of his mother with stage 4 cancer, and none of the investors we'd courted over the summer were returning my calls. And then, all of a sudden, my phone blew up. Amazon was planning to open up a second headquarters and was accepting bids from cities across North America. I literally dropped my laptop. I was so excited. The next day, my dad got me an internship at City Hall, and for the next sleepless month, I would work day and night helping to craft Boston's proposal for HQ2. It was exhilarating. Driving past dilapidated city blocks on my way to work, I imagined pristine glass skyscrapers rising from smoldering dollar store rubble. It literally felt like time traveling into the future. When we submitted the proposal on October 20th, my dad congratulated me with a copy of J.P. Morgan's biography. I read it cover to cover that night. What struck me was Morgan's relationship with the astrologist Evangeline Adams. He worked closely with Adams in his later years, consulting her on the changing positions of the planets and their effects on global finance and politics. "Millionaires don't use astrology," he said, "but billionaires do." At that point, I'd read just about every article and op-ed analyzing every inch of every proposal, every decision Jeff Bezos made since he uttered his first word. It was penny, by the way, hoping to find out which city would land HQ2. I realized that all these analysts and experts were doomed in their approach. They were thinking like millionaires. In order to think like a billionaire, I had to go beyond the facts. I read up on all kinds of ancient and occult divination techniques and eventually landed on zoomancy, predicting the future based on the behavior of animals. Amazon, after all, was named after the most biodiverse ecosystem on the planet. And no, don't worry, I didn't just go around slaughtering deer looking to see Amazon spelled out in the entrails. I devised a system of my own, combining electriomancy, a Russian folk tradition in which grain is scattered over a circle of letters, and then a message is deciphered from the letters exposed after a rooster is done feeding. Orniscopy, monitoring the appearance and flight direction of birds, famously used in the Odyssey to predict the coming of Odysseus as well as the death of his wife. And finally, the highly charged, anticipatory celebrity space of red carpet step and repeat backdrops. It's a mouthful, I know. But it's actually pretty simple. I printed a vinyl Amazon HQ2 step and repeat backdrop, mounted it on a basic PVC skeleton, and then used a motion sensing hunting camera to photograph any animals who wandered into frame. Here's an early Photoshop sketch of potential results that I was looking for. The idea was that the presence, position, and type of animal captured on camera could be interpreted to determine a city's viability in the race to court HQ2. Eventually, I would embark on a road trip across the country to set up my traps on the outskirts of 15 top contenders in the race. Using each city's most distinctive cuisine as bait, I would leave the traps up for exactly a week before checking the results and moving on. Unfortunately, this meant leaving Boston. Like everyone, I want the best for my hometown. But I had already done everything in my power to secure for Boston a front row seat on the train of progress. I had to come to grips with the fact that innovation doesn't care about your hometown. It doesn't care about your favorite baseball team or your high school buddies or the playground where you had your first kiss. If I wanted to be a part of the future, I had to go out and chase it. So I downloaded a couple audiobooks and hit the road. My research is still in progress, but tonight, for the first time ever, I'd like to share my findings in front of a live audience. In the interest of time, I have to skip over a couple of cities that I visited, but I can tell you with full certainty that Amazon will not build its headquarters in Miami, Raleigh, Indianapolis, Columbus, Nashville, Dallas, or Austin. Boston's proposal includes an Amazon task force, basically a team of government liaisons working full-time for Amazon under the city's payroll. Prestigious universities like Harvard and MIT, while not technically in Boston, certainly helped the bid. Unfortunately, my bait of clam chowder attracted no animal activity. Next on my trip was Toronto. Toronto's main talking points were universal health care and lower corporate taxes. Surprising, I know. You'd think Canada would have higher corporate taxes. But the pile of pea meal bacon sandwiches I left in Downsview Park remained untouched after a week. In Pittsburgh, despite 6 pounds of S&D Polish pierogies and a world-class talent pool, Pittsburgh was also crossed off the list. Chicago's offer of $2 billion in tax breaks and deep dish pizza did not make the cut. Denver had one of the weakest proposals of any major city, offering just $100 million in performance-based incentives spread over 5 to 10 years. I used Rocky Mountain oysters as bait, and big surprise, nothing showed up. Atlanta took one of the more unconventional approaches, offering to rename the nearby city of Stonecrest to Amazon and appoint Jeff Bezos as the permanent mayor. Finally, the home-cooked peach cobbler I used as bait yielded some animal activity. A crow perched nearby cast shadows on the backdrop, but never passed directly in frame. DC's proximity to political power is obviously very tempting. Bezos 2020, anyone? The city also offered to build a university to train Amazon employees. For bait, I used a full rack of ribs from Freddy's Barbecue, a hole-in-the-wall joint famous for its appearance on the Netflix series House of Cards. Apparently not famous enough to attract any local wildlife. I was beginning to wonder whether my system was flawed when I arrived at the last stop on my tour, Newark, New Jersey, a city offering $7 billion in tax incentives, the highest of any publicized offer so far. After a week, I returned to find that my offering of signature North Jersey Italian hot dogs had disappeared completely. My camera revealed these images. More crows, but this time in frame, at least partially. Only shadows, wings, and some tails. After 4 months on the road, I headed back to Boston, exhausted and confused. What could shadows imply for the future of Atlanta? Did the partial appearance of crows in Newark really mean they were the most likely to land HQ2? Or would Amazon just put another shipping center there? Or regional office? My car broke down outside Stamford, Connecticut, and a mechanic told me repairs could take up to 2 weeks. Despite Stamford's absence from Amazon's shortlist and basically every reputable media outlet's speculations, I decided to take advantage of my situation and set my camera up one last time. I tried to keep my hopes up. Who knows? Jeff Bezos is an unpredictable genius after all. Maybe the shortlist was a ruse and he's wanted Stamford all along for its strategic location between Boston and New York. I baited the trap with a Cornish hen. first bred by Alphonsine and Jacques Makowski in rural Connecticut. A week later, I returned to find my backdrop toppled over, the PVC frame destroyed. Just a warning, the next frame is a bit gory. But when I lifted the backdrop, I found that the hen's carcass was thoroughly picked over, and my camera revealed this image. A crow caught fully in frame. Had Connecticut's bid been underestimated? The next image was of my backdrop collapsing in a late-night storm, and crows continued to soar overhead for the next several days. It's hard to see, but this shadow here is a crow. Top left corner and upper center. I can't be sure if the photo confirms the location of HQ2. Perhaps it predicts Jeff Bezos' imminent or eventual death in Stamford, or some other Amazon-related industrial catastrophe. I had left Boston 4 months earlier on a hunt for the future, only to stumble into the maw of a much stranger dimension, ruled by eerie mysticism and cryptic prophecies. I'm not sure where this place is or what it means, but something is definitely brewing in Stamford, Connecticut. Thank you very much.
Love letter to Efeya. Hey, Fefe. I'm writing this letter now because I've been unable to say it since that night when your world started breaking and I declared myself your foundation. Solidness you could hold on to, impenetrable. I wanted to fill the spaces of sadness, selfish, dread, be the barrier between you and the airless room. When hours unfurled out into 2 terrible days as the 4 of us huddled in the hallway, waiting for the impossible news that we all already knew. Cancer, again, stage 4. You'd answered calls saying, I'm fine, I'm okay, saying they're keeping me overnight, saying I can't do this again. I watched the way grief and grace trace the lines of your face, beautiful even then. I remember my silly envy of your bustiness, how I'd tried to get you to flaunt summer halters. But now those same breasts are carrying cells ablaze like a million tiny stars pulling you towards the sun. What I am trying to say is words fail us. Beauty fails us. Bodies fail us. Like the sea, how its glassy turquoise can hold a cluster of whirlpools underneath. I wish I could make a magic potion, call upon our twin Pisces power, call upon the sirens, all the winds, salt, and water between this world and the next. Le Sirin is calling you back to land because our Veve is incomplete with just one fish. She calls us dreaming of boys and babies like 5 years ago, calls us mothers of sassy daughters and lazy sons, calls us silly weed-smoking, tequila-drinking, talking about the good old dancing days ladies who still look good for our age. What I am trying to say is I need you. Let us not write the word die. Call us love, call us infinite, call us brilliance, call you life. I fucking love you. With light, Kendra.
I should say words. So this was a collaboration between myself and Erin Batiste, and the way this came about is I shared some journal entries about my best friend who's suffering right now or thriving through cancer right now. And so we collectively turned this into the poem that you heard and that I also performed to, and I'm out of breath. And utilizing some of Dr. Wray's embodiology techniques, which you'll also see a little bit later, to come up with this collaborative piece. So.
I should say something before
Yeah.
we start.
If you care to, yes.
Yeah, that's okay. So this was a performance that was created yesterday in one of our sessions. We were working with some text, which poets in this room might recognize. And we had a timer, so it's a specific length, and the 3 ideas that they were working with, which was to do with proximity in terms of the audience. It's to do with something that we call fractal code, and also relationship. We doing some intimate work yesterday, so this is one iteration. So rather than try to recreate it, because it was created in the moment, it's an improvisation, a one-time choreography, thought it essential to share that rather than seek to recreate.
Spitting out the name. Spitting out. Spitting out the name of your leader. Spitting. Spitting out. Spitting out the name of your leader. Where
With your leader? Where were your feet? With the leader.
What I'm going to say for you is the poet's work really will speak for itself, so I don't feel like I should say too much. I'm going to let them get up here and do their thing. I will also say that their generosity will speak for itself if you go to our writing studio, which is just through the doors and up to the right. The things that they prepared for you to experience in terms of what we were doing these 3 weeks also will be great. So if you get a chance, walk over there and check that out. Okay, so the third thing is just sort of an analogy of what is it like in a poetry workshop. I think people don't understand poetry, so they certainly don't know what we do. What I will tell you we do in a poetry workshop is we talk about poetry. No matter what the subject is, we talk about poetry. So there's that. That's what we talk about. But the people, for this group, it would be like Thanksgiving, which is not my favorite holiday. Halloween is my favorite holiday. Because Thanksgiving always just brings a bunch of tastes to the table, if you follow me. So for us, it's like, you got a retired drill sergeant and a professor and future grad student and people from Los Angeles, which is already crazy, everywhere, people from everywhere. So it's Thanksgiving, except it's every day for 3 weeks. So that's kind of crazy. And I would say all I was like the relative who really doesn't cook but shows up and says, can y'all make a peach cobbler today? And then they're like, yeah, give us 30 minutes. And then they make a peach cobbler. It's 9 different kinds of peach cobbler. Can y'all make turkey with a chicken in the middle of it? Okay, we can do that. Can you make me bacon wrapped in carrots? So every day I just showed up and kind of proposed a recipe, and they just made amazing stuff. So I really want you to get a chance to hear it. I don't even know what the order is or what's going to happen, but I do think that the poets, I think I've only used a master artist sort of analogy only when forced. I was actually talking to S this morning about we're all working, we're all in the water, we're all really peers. It's never easy for anyone. How many book surprises you got? It's always a challenge. And so that is really how we come together with the prospect of making things. And so they are the poets is what they are. They're not associates. And I will say, I hope that when they go out and they wind up in the New Yorker and everywhere, they will remember that they did it here. So say you did it in Terrance's class at ACA. That's the best gift. That's the best food that I'll get, to know that I had a little bit to do with the brilliance that they showed up with. So they're going to show it to you.
Oh, it's lovely to be here. Thank you. So there's some images that have kind of come up on the screen, and I just thought of that today. My parents were Holocaust survivors. My parents were first cousins. My mother survived 6 concentration camps, and my father survived living in a hole underground. And one of the opportunities we had this week, or the past 3 weeks, was to write, I don't even know what this prompt was, but Terrance gives us prompts all the time. So this one was something about thank you to someone. So it was a thank you to my mama. And these are pictures of people who were murdered of my family, 128 members of my family. Thank you, Mama, for the time I lost my math book, or at least couldn't find it in the canary yellow kitchen or the fuzzy orange embroidered living room, you so crazy about color and jungle wild floral dresses and paisley blouses, you sweet-talked me into trying on, saying, "Oh, it's so pretty. Tiviglanda, so pretty." Then you'd spit between your fingers right in the Marianne shop fitting room, though no spit actually came out and wasn't meant to. Just the gesture made me safe from the evil eye. Thank you for your answer when you said, "Oi, Abroch, I saw 5 men running down the street. Your book, so heavy it was, with all those problems, multiply, divide, subtract." Like life, I think, like life, no? And thank you for the absence note you brought to school, though it made my teacher know I lied and called me a liar right in the middle of the sunny day dodgeball game, a game I never understood or thought was just plain mean, you know. And you told her, "My daughter is not a liar. She is just a person who wants to be perfect." And I ran to the girls' room all the way on the other side of the playground to throw up. And thank you for holding my head when I threw up. Before piano lessons too, and for telling Mr. Gitman with his thick lips and throat lozenges and sensens, those flat red diamond-shaped breath mints, not to come anymore, which makes me wonder if you knew I thought his sensens were pills for his nervousness, believing my poor playing got on his nerves. And I am trying to thank you for not speaking enough English for me to feel safe in the streets, and for how you learned to read beside me Dick and Jane and Spot, but never imagined buying me a book or reading me a book. But to be fair, every Saturday you drove me to the Northeast Regional Library, dropped me off, picked me up, though you never entered. And I'm trying to thank you for speaking your mother tongues, your Polish, your Yiddish, your Hebraiski, mixed together so I didn't know which language was which. I am writing also to tell you I am still losing things. And I myself get lost so easily it scares me to be here among thick green palm fronds and fans, boardwalks between bushes, a place you'd run from because the thunder, oi the lightning, oi the greenness so lush, it would scare you. All of the world is just a narrow bridge, the song goes. And the point is not to be afraid. Kol ha'olam, gesher tzar ma'od. I am trying to thank you, Mama, for not teaching me that song. I am trying to thank you for being so afraid. Thanks, that's it.
Hi. Hello. I'm Liz. I'm going to read 2 poems. And first, I just want to say thank you to everyone. It's been really great here. I've learned a lot. I feel like, I learned a lot in the workshops, and I could have just come here and sat in the middle for 3 weeks and watched everybody and learned a lot. So thank you. All right, so the first poem is called Out of State or Field Guide. Both of these were written off of prompts in Terrance's workshop. This one is about not being from Florida, trying to figure it out. Out of State or Field Guide. Florida. Imagine the white-breasted, yellow-bellied mystery bird of your grandparents' northern yard, the one you half-named, and poorly, by looks. Here, it's small talloning its way over a vine branch, which is the out-of-state name for any brown vine with meat fingers, delicate wrists, and a slim trunk of stacked, impossible ankles. At maturity, it slumps, leaning on whatever's nearest, like a guy smoking cloves. Here, let me show you these great Egyptian fan bushes, all head on a stick like drawings by toddlers, all Mardi Gras headdresses, bright and neck up until they fall under the weight of their pride, and at the end of their green, sober up or pass out or simply turn into scrub. This here is what I call the lightning tree, which I secretly think of as night lightning, but that seems too NASCAR, yes? It's an interpretive dance of a tree, a Jacob's ladder leaning just over your head, and the frequent home to the red breather lizard who juts ahead 3 times into morning before releasing his royal red neck cape and then sucking it in, back under cover. You will, hopefully, never see the bush rustler, except in a zoo, but you may encounter a crane, which, like a fool, I have sometimes called stork over lunch. And one day you'll see a large bird that is flying and pink, about which I can promise you should just shut your mouth. Thank God, that's a cat. I know what a cat is. And I could also identify, if it came to it, but I don't think it will, a turtle, a crocodile, a snake, which, in the live light of my illiterate panic, I would probably only call snake and not by its full name. And I know something of Spanish moss, though really I am guessing based on what I know about the shape of regret and the various greens that are how grief presents. When I touched it, which felt slightly illicit, like something I would only do if I thought another person was watching, it felt not at all like the moss I know and have always called moss, cleaving in streams to rocks it knows well. I used to pull it up in sheets, like carpet from old hardwoods, its small grips snapping underneath. And this poem is a poem about home. This poem is a poem about my apartment in Philadelphia. It's called Maintenance Request Hotline. The mouse, like a nearly invisible dart, is not an emergency unless your body is just a grown shell for a girl. The sound of a sink clearing its throat while you eat is not an emergency, but the sound of emergencies past. A kitten outside is not an emergency either, though it will be if you bring it inside. The maintenance man who waits in the parking lot to praise your whole unabridged body is not an emergency, but he is if he speaks to your daughter. Did your carbon monoxide detector pass through its green winks into red? Not an emergency yet. We'll see. The question of whether someone died in this room is less an emergency than a probable certainty, and the answer to how long she lay there, her hair wagging in a window unit breeze like the shredded ends of a flag, is 3. 3 what is not an emergency? Neighbors singing too loudly can't be emergencies because this sign doesn't say small boxes for whispers. Once, the hallway ceiling caved in, and we all came to see because we'd been wondering what an emergency looked like. Being alone with whomever comes to recalk your shower while dust crawls slow as spacemen through sluices of sun is not an emergency because you called us, right? The brown liquid rooting its way under the paint on your wall is not an emergency because we know what it is, just as the leak in your ceiling is not an emergency because we know where it came from, and the answer is us. If the fire alarm puts its red arm to its head for more than 10 minutes and you're still alive, that's not an emergency. Come out to the yard in your robe while we wait for the truck. See over there? Those boys with mittens kicking your snowmen aren't emergencies, but the sound of emergencies coming. Thank you.
Even stars
closer, and closer, and closer, and climbed onto my foot.
collaborative improvisations. We worked on it a little bit, but we really wanted to craft it on the spot. So this is on the spot. And we're using or utilizing what we've learned in embodiology as tools to sort of craft it on the spot. Yeah, enjoy.